Good afternoon, everyone. It's so great to see everyone. How was the show? Excellent. Thank you, and thank you for your input as audience members, speakers, sponsors. Thanks to everyone for making this a great 20th anniversary Streaming Media East show. Stick around. Well, obviously, if you're here, you're sticking around, right? After the keynote, we will be giving away a Live View Solo and My Sling Studio package valued at more than $3,500. We'll give it away after the keynote. We've scanned your badges as you've come in. We'll pick a winner at random, and we'll announce it after Rachel's keynote. When we do that, just come on up to myself or Jose. Jose, raise your hand in the back. If you haven't seen Jose, Julie, our cruise director, is back there. One of us will get your contact information, and then Live View will get in touch with you and ship you the prize directly. So, that being said, we're moving on to the third of three great keynotes. It started out with Facebook, who've changed the way we think about live video, Netflix, who's changed the way we think about television, and Google, which has changed the way we think, period. So it's a great way, I think, to end things here. Rachel Berk is the Business Development Manager at Google in the Android department, helping media and entertainment apps create successful businesses on Android. She's going to wrap up the show by talking about what's next for video, OTT, subscription services, and the connected living room. So, Rachel, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here and talking to you guys, and I'm excited that you're forced to stay here until the end in order to win a prize. I wish all meetings ended like that with a prize. So today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the industry, where we are right now with OTT and the living room, and how that's transformed both the way that consumers view and experience media, and also the way that the industry has reacted to that. And then at the end, I'm going to go through a little bit of new technology and how we perceive that to be shaping both consumer and industry perceptions in the future. So here we go. Here we go. So as I mentioned, it's a transitioning living room experience right now. We've gone from cable to wireless and now to new devices that are really, again, changing the way that people interact with that space. I think one of the things that has stayed constant, though, is the living room as the central meeting place and the sort of fulcrum of all content for the home. Just giving you a couple of stats, which are depressing and heartening at the same time. So based on this, Americans spend an average of 12 hours a day consuming tech and media, and that number is growing and strong. For better or for worse, technology has created a world in which consumption is at the user's convenience. In addition to time-shifted viewing, which I'm sure our Netflix friends told you a lot about, binge watching also, there's also multiple devices now that deliver content. And there's a surge in multitasking and an entire generation of folks who are really reliant on that second or third or fourth screen to experience content. So here you can see that there are 31 hours. For those of you that did quick math, there are 31 hours in the day because it does not feel like that to me ever. But there are 31 hours in the day because of all this multitasking. And again, 12 of those apparently are used consuming media. And that number is growing. So right now, estimates indicate that by 2021, Americans are going to spend an additional 18 minutes consuming media. So get excited. That's almost an episode of Seinfeld, right? And why is this? Like this crowd interaction. Why is this? But because we have these technologies that allow us to do more things. This woman right here who's reading a book while she's driving, so things like self-driving cars and home speakers are going to allow for more content consumption overall. And as home devices end up implementing screens as well, you'll also see more video consumption in a variety of different places in the home throughout the day. So this is just from a market sizing angle, just to give, again, a kind of a context overall. You can see here that OTT is still dwarfed by TV and broadcast advertising, so in terms of market value. The broadcast advertising and TV are those bottom two buckets right there. But OTT and subscriptions are growing really rapidly, and they're not mutually exclusive either. The other thing that's happening is households are not just one or the other, cable or OTT, but have both. So the global TV and video market is estimated at about $461 billion, and 75% of that revenue is generated by those two legacy products, right? But the overall market is growing at 3%, and 26% growth is coming from digital video advertising and 18% growth from subscriptions. So in terms of like propulsion forward, those are the business models that are really making the impact on those growth numbers. And here's a breakdown that I just mentioned of the cordless households here. So you can see that the cordless households are really replacing those cable and satellite households overall at about a third. And again, Wi-Fi devices at about 60% of households. And then again, one other breakdown, and then I'm done with the stat slides for a little bit. This is the living room device penetration. And I think this one's really interesting because it really does show how OTT is a very important vector for media, absolutely. But I think even though the IoT devices at the moment are less ubiquitous and less common, it's still really relevant in terms of how we think about media consumption overall. Smart wearables, speakers, and then audio systems, obviously, as well, making up the bottom of the section. And so given all of this, I think it's safe to say that OTT is defining our current media landscape. So one of the things that OTT shift has done is it's really changed consumers' needs and expectations, what they think they deserve from media companies and where they think they can get it. So from the consumer's perspective, they now have even more choice, right? There's more confusion as well, but they also have higher expectations when it comes to what they want to watch. They want to watch it when they want to watch it. They want to watch it for the amount of money they think it is worth. And all of these different models are changing, I think, the level of entitlement of consumers to really get their content in the way that they want it. Having said all of that, despite the vast amount of choices, particularly around content consumption, you still have the vast majority of OTT content being delivered by 4 main services here. And I think it's fair to say that this could be decision fatigue. Our research indicates that the most watch time for users is for in-process content. So you're going to either that episode that you started but didn't finish, or maybe the season that you started but didn't finish. Users want to pick up where they left off. And so I think absolutely binge watching is an important thing, but I think it's also indicative of a desire for users these days to really jump right into that content that they want to experience. They don't want to spend that leisure time browsing through a vast array of content options. These are interesting stats around searching particularly, and we think a lot about this at Google, obviously, because we're a search company, and we want to aid and contribute to this conversation. And they're really staggering. I think a couple of things that jump out to me is that VOD definitely does appear to be more efficient, obviously, and the ratio, the differential between searching and watching is around 2 to 1, right, versus linear TV. And those services absolutely make discovery easier. But I think one of the other things that we're seeing is that people actively seek out live TV for that browse experience, that there is something inherently satisfying or valuable channel flipping, right? And so at Google, as we're starting to think about how to make the user experience the best that it can possibly be, we're not just thinking about that in terms of efficiency, we're also thinking about it in terms of user desires. This is the product we just launched. So if you guys go to your Android phones now, which I'm sure all of you are holding, yeah, woo. You can go to your Play Movies and TV app and actually experience this. It's pretty cool. You can give thumbs up, thumbs down, sort in all of these variety of ways. And we're hoping to replicate both the browse, search, recommendation process in a way that users really respond to. And so far, the data has been really cool and interesting. So I think it's clear that we're really at the very bleeding edge of solutions for content discovery, and there are challenges absolutely associated with this, and it's a problem, I think. Heading back to tried and true content portals, YouTube, Amazon, and Netflix, it's totally natural, but I think we're thinking a lot about how we can better serve the user who wants a piece of content that maybe isn't available on those top 4 services, or how can the users better understand the content landscape overall? Or, and I think most importantly as it relates to our company is, how can we use machine learning and new technologies to better inform recommendations? Really understanding where the user wants to be, where they are in their certainty spectrum, which is a phrase I've come to really love, and how we can kind of direct them to the right piece of content for that. So I want to talk a little bit about how the media industry has responded to all of these changes. And so, at a really high level, in response to all of these challenges, media companies are consolidating, right? They're up-leveling, they're experimenting with any and all types of content. Viewer path to content is complicated, as I just mentioned. There are rising costs associated with delivering and producing that content. You have a fragmented audience across different form factors, and obviously privacy continues to be a concern. So given all that, this is a graphic that I like to show thanks to Recode. And it's just kind of a very broad general overview of where the media industry is today. And as you can see, there are really big players, and there are also smaller companies that are linked to larger organizations as well. And I think even though it doesn't always feel like it to us who work in the business on a day-to-day basis, there still is a fair amount of distinction between distributors and content companies. So the distributors are purple, and content is teal, and Netflix gets to be red over there. And there's overlap, and there have been mergers, but it's not at all the norm at this moment. So there's definitely big mergers that have occurred recently, both horizontally. I think Scripps Discovery is a big one recently, and then vertical mergers, Comcast Universal, AT&T Time Warner. And then also, I think, interestingly, there's been a lot of globalization efforts. So Disney partnering with Star India, CBS, and Channel 10 in Australia. And the reason for that is that there's an industry land grab right now, which makes sense, and a desire to find users. And the traditional players want to make sure that they're controlling every single stage of the value chain, from distribution to data and advertising. Specifically around that advertising piece, I think as consumers move to OTT platforms, traditional operators are beginning to experiment with new tools to find eyeballs, which is interesting growth in that. I think there's going to be a lot of innovative formats, different ad loads, less disruptive environments, and tailored messaging to entice ad-blocking consumers and earn even more revenue. On the content side, and this is kind of new media specific, there's a lot of companies that are dipping their toes into traditional models. You can see here the arrows indicating YouTube as a great example, going into linear with YouTube TV, and Facebook going into live with Facebook Live. Overall, there's a ton of experimentation, I think, and a sense that differentiated content is going to be the key value driver for media companies overall. And there's still so much opportunity for OTT services to further expand into new models and to reinvent the old. I think we talk a lot about peak TV. We talk a lot about the gobs of money that are being thrown at original content creation. We're seeing unparalleled resources at the moment spent on this original programming. In the US, just to give you some numbers, there was 487 original scripted shows in 2017. That's 83% more than the year before. So it's just explosive right now. Netflix is going to spend $7 to $8 billion this year on original content, an additional billion from the year before, and Amazon is estimated to spend $4.5 billion. So I think what we're seeing is definitely an investment in that original programming. But looking forward, I think what we're going to see is a lot of investment in live, even more investment in sports, which you're starting to see now. But I think that's going to be a big growth area in terms of like resource allocation. And then local, I think, is a place that we haven't seen a ton of yet. So it'll be interesting to see how these media companies really try to like target and locate users with these different sorts of differentiated content. And so then I think looking at the big picture, looking at the different kinds of interactions that bring content beyond the TV. So I like this slide because it just shows this huge proliferation of the smart speaker, where we were and where we are now. I mean, obviously, it's not the speaker, right? It's the technology that powers the speaker, and we are in massive assistant war territory right now. And that the container for that technology is interesting, but slightly inconsequential. It's the technology itself that's going to reshape the way that people interact with content overall, and we're just at the very beginning of this. Obviously, we're still in really early days, which I think this slide really does indicate how early days we are. Users are still figuring out how to utilize assistant technology in a way that works for them. It's a skill that you have to learn. Think about people first starting to use cell phones. And the majority of owners, even super users who are using their smart speakers 3x times a day, really are playing music and then are focused on a very small set of portal functions that are pretty basic in terms of assistant functionality. I think as users become more sophisticated and the assistants that are running those speakers are more intuitive, we'll see a really vast expansion of functionality. So at Google, we think about the assistant a lot, and we think about commands in really two categories: direct actions and conversational actions. And our key pillars for the assistant are conversational, personal, fast, and fun. And I don't know if anyone saw the keynote, the I/O keynote yesterday, but we spent a lot of time talking about the assistant. And there was this awesome demo, which I encourage all of you to look up online, where the assistant actually made a phone call to a hair salon. The assistant was talking to a human hairdresser and made an appointment, and then called a restaurant and made a reservation. And you could see how fun, conversational, personal, and fast it was. And I think we're really just pretty close now to having assistant functionality that veers in the territory of actual personal assistance and really beyond. So I think it's an exciting time. Content specifically, though, and our assistant is on our TV form factor as well. We really want to solve for both discovery and engagement. So again, helping users find the content that they want and also learn more about the content that they're currently watching. So watching Jumanji, who's the main actor? Dwayne Johnson. What else was he in? He has a series called Ballers. It's on HBO. Open up HBO, get a subscription. You know, that entire flow of inquisitive to actually transactional is something that we're thinking a lot about and figuring out how to make it intuitive and easy. Touching briefly, because I think this is also a really exciting, important way that the living room is being reshaped, is VR. And you know, media companies are definitely seeing the possibility in this, in virtual and augmented reality too, although that usually sits outside the living room. It's definitely early days, but there's exciting experimentation going on, and the costs associated with VR keep on diminishing, and the technology continues to become more and more accessible to less tech-savvy users. And so as we see this, I think we're going to see a lot more uptick, and these immersive technologies, which really do capture the imagination of users in a way that nothing else does. And I think it's interesting because it's really a counterpoint to some of the multitasking second, third screen data we were looking at earlier, which is, VR really is, in a lot of ways, the very opposite of that, right? And VR really has a lot of potential in entertainment and gaming and education, lots of different ways that this technology can be utilized to delight users. Overall, media companies are investing in this technology. These are VR-specific companies, but just as an example, Hulu launched a virtual reality app for Samsung. CBS transformed Netflix's Stranger Things into an Emmy-nominated VR experience, and the New York Times has a great VR app on Daydream that allows users to witness current events in real time. So a lot of exciting things going on. I think sports also huge vector for VR. And at Google, We were excited about AR and VR technology. Last Friday, we launched the Mirage Solo, which is the world's first standalone Daydream headset, and the Mirage camera, so users can capture and share their moments on the new device. So we're excited about this, and the current enthusiasm, the response has been really, really positive to this device, so it's exciting for us. Additionally, and just touching briefly on AR, users are, the exciting thing about AR, especially for media companies, is that it comes at scale, right? Every phone in your pocket, most phones in your pocket now have this AR capacity. And so what we're seeing is hundreds of millions of users can experience AR, and they already have their phones in their pockets. And we've built AR Core so that developers can start to experiment with that technology and create cool functionality like stickers here. And you can see this Disney integration with the Stormtroopers, very exciting for us. And it was a fun extension of their IP. It's not a lot of technical work and has a pretty big impact. And so that's it. We have some time to take questions. I think overall, it's a great time to be in media and technology. The world is changing and changed. These technologies are disrupting both consumer expectations and also the way that the industry is thinking about how to deliver their content. They're devoting more and more time and resources to content creation, and so are we. So it's a good time to be in the business and to be starting to shape the space. Thank you guys all so much. I'm open for questions.
So Jose and I are wandering with the microphones here. Raise your hand, please, and I'll.
Oh, you can come. I didn't know whether I had to go to a microphone. I'm curious about a couple things. So do you see Assistant evolving into kind of like a standalone robotic element creature device? Not just like an Alexa, but I mean really like a whole standalone R2-D2 kind of thing? And also, do you see a whole evolution of like tutorials that will help train us to sort of incorporate these into our world, kind of like the movie Her, only where they don't talk to each other and decide to abandon all of us, but where we figure out how to better interact with them?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think.
We could have them talk to each other and decide to abandon.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't think a ton about how robots could affect us, other than I guess how it relates to content specifically. I think in terms of like content discovery devices and viewing devices, there are some limitations. I don't know if you're going to have like a walking robot screen. But maybe. I mean, I think again, if we're thinking holistically, right, it's about user demand and expectation, and as much as the industry determines that, there's a lot of inputs from a variety of different factors that lead to how the technology develops.
Well, actually, I see it as an interesting application for somebody who's disabled, in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another question.
Well, how about my second question about further interactions, other devices that are assistants and all? Will there be some sort of an evolving platform or some sort of interaction where one can talk to the other and do things and set them into motion?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of have that now, right, with your phone being able to set your thermostat. I mean, I think, in terms of different ecosystems being able to interact with one another, I think we're sort of there. Whether or not that takes a human form, I can't really speak to. But I think interaction models make a ton of sense to the extent that it helps users get what they need and get where they're going.
Yes, Thierry Fautier from Harmonic. You have not mentioned the very popular platform from Android called Android TV. What can you share with us on the success and the future plan to maybe conquest the world?
Fingers crossed. No, I mean, I love Android TV. I work a lot on it, passionate about it. We had some interesting announcements at I/O around Android TV and how Google is investing in devices for Android as well. We launched a soundbar. You may have seen that. So that's an exciting thing for us. And I think, overall, I think the TV is such an important component of that living room. And so, using Android, we love our OS, we love our platform, and utilizing that in TV forum. We've launched a ton of TV features in the last year, so we're investing a lot of resources in it overall. Really thinking about different ways that Android TV can be utilized across different form factors. So whether it's a set-top box or whether it's an OEM device, a smart TV, or whether we're working with operators, we're thinking about all of those things. And I think, I think it's exciting, ton of investment, lots of opportunity. And as we start to think about all of the different technologies that Google has and can utilize and how that can apply to that TV form factor, we love it. We're excited about it. Keep watching it grow.
Coming your way.
You gonna make it first? I think Jose's gonna make it first.
Hi, Chris Knowlton with Blue Frame Technology. All of this is about the consumer experience. I'm wondering if you're also investigating how the same tools and technologies can be applied in business environments, enterprise, education, et cetera.
Yeah, and it's a huge component of a lot of these things, particularly AR and VR, and thinking about the business applications of that. Certainly the education applications of those are huge. It's not something that I spend a ton of time on, so I don't have a ton of expertise about it specifically, but it's definitely something that I have colleagues that spend time on and something that we're excited about. And I think from the enterprise side, really trying to make a lot of these features and functionality work on the enterprise scale, but it's definitely not my expertise.
Any other questions for Rachel? All right, well, that was great. Once again, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.